Next on the tee, our final guests of 2025 here, friends of the podcast that we previously had on to promote all things mini golf. We love mini golf here at the Course of Life, and we've showcased lots of different mini golf experiences. And so have these two hosts of the podcast. They're part of the American Mini Golf Alliance. It's Tom Loftus and Pat Sheridan joining us here on the Course of Life. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Great. Thanks for having us back, Alex. Do you remember when we were on last? I feel like it was 22.
I think it was either 22 or 23. Yeah, correct. It's been at least 2 years, but we've stayed in touch because
Yes,
our
we have.
paths crossed to lots of different things in the golf space, especially when it comes to all things putting. So, Tom, just refresh everyone about what you and Pat do in the mini golf space, both in content form and with your adventures in mini golf tournaments as well.
Sure. Should I do our whole rundown of our intro, Pat? No, I won't do that. Pat and I have been involved in the mini golf world for quite a while. Pat longer than me, but I started out as a couple of putts with my wife, where we reviewed courses and documented the game of mini golf, and then we've also designed and consulted on courses. And then Pat.
Yeah, so most people know me better as the putting penguin, and I've been doing course reviews for almost 25 years now and have spun that into a world of mini golf between, as you said, the Puttcast, the AMA, and I also sit on the executive board of the World Mini Golf Sport Federation. So I have an international flair to my game now after 2.5 decades.
Interesting. Yeah. And the international part has definitely been showcased a lot in your content too, because I've seen some trips to what I saw Sweden. I saw you were checking off all sorts of different European destinations recently. Tell me about for people who don't know outside of the US, the international presence of mini golf and where that all comes from as well too.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start. So, with the international place, there is a leisure aspect to mini golf all around the world, but the competitive spirit of mini golf really started in continental Europe and has been going there for 50, 60, in some cases 70 plus years, a lot in Sweden and Germany. And the WMF runs all of these tournaments throughout the year. And so this year was a big year for us. We had the World Championships where I got to go and watch basically the Olympics of mini golf in Germany this year for about
Very
almost
cool.
2 weeks. So that was part of our international slate. And it just happened to be that while I was in Germany watching a lot of mini golf, Tom got to go to Sweden and play a lot of mini golf.
That is true, and I don't know if we really don't have nearly enough time to go down the rabbit hole, but the types of mini golf that Pat was watching, we found out from a recent guest from Germany, Sarah Schumacher, that are very common there. But for anybody from the US, concrete and the what they call miniature golf, or what we would call Ethernet courses, are completely foreign, and that's what they had for their major competitions. Now, when I was in Sweden, I was playing on I was playing in the final of this tour for the City Golf Tour, and City Golf is a company based out of Sweden that builds mini golf courses that are, well, kind of like Pop Stroke. They have like these berm walls that are maybe about a foot tall that you can play rollback shots on.
Okay.
But it would be defined internationally as adventure golf, but for listeners that Ethernet, concrete, felt, adventure golf is just like, what are these guys talking about? I would say adventure golf is what most people in the US, UK, Oceania would view as like mini golf at a
Right.
normal course. And as you know from seeing Pop Stroke, adventure golf can look a lot of different ways. It can look like courses that look like just a miniature version of a larger golf course, or it can have big dinosaurs and pirate ships, or it can be blacklight, or it can be digitally enhanced. And so in Sweden, they traditionally and historically had a type of mini golf called felt. And so adventure golf there is relatively new in the way that they have it. These city golf courses are really built for competition, like the felt courses that are standardized. The idea on all of these standardized types courses is you should be able to get a hole in one on them. And in the
Mm.
top competitions, people shoot between 18 and 20 on like the Ethernet courses super regularly. I think there was a guy in Sweden who played on Ethernet, Eric Nilsson, that shot 18, 19, 19, 20, and then 4 rounds of 21 to finish. So he missed just over like what, 11 or so or 12 or so tee shots in 8 rounds on that
Golly.
type. And I say that for historical context because Sweden, in the way that they play their competitive adventure golf, it's really designed to get really low scores. And on the City Golf Tour, I played with some of the best players in the world, and those scores were incredibly low. I was fortunate to have qualified for the final and played one of the qualifiers, but I played in the elite divisions in both of them. And in one of them, I averaged a 27.7 around and the other a 31 around. And both of those scores were good enough to be second to last. And the averages of the winners were between the one course, I think the average was around a 22, 23, and the other was about a 24, 25. Um, Very different than golf scores. The expectation on, again, here comes some different language. Instead of calling them holes, they call them lanes. Again, kind of referencing the traditional standard courses.
Yeah.
Um, these lanes, everybody kind of expected they could get an ace on almost all of them. So hole in ones, it was the expectation, and it's a very different way to play than in the States, and the level of competition is just wild. I even played casually in a local club in one of the cities I stayed at, and I was playing with people in their 50s to 70s, 9 a.m. in the morning, 2 round little competitive event. Rounds in the 29, 30 range were, I was in the lower end of the elite regular locals. I had some pensioner players, the retirees that I did better than, but I mean, they just had, they just played a lot in their club system because the clubs are owned by the players there. They run these mini golf courses. And so if you're a mini golf competitive fiend in a lot of these European countries, you can kind of go on the course whenever you want and train it whenever you want. And what you get is the result of a lot of really, really well trained and talented players. And that is what I saw for several weeks in Sweden on adventure golf. And I played some felt.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a neat way to describe the different, subtopics within styles of mini golf that people see here around the world. And I appreciated the breakdown on just how good the best are. So, Pat, on that note, like the very best mini golfers in the world, now, like tying this over the way I view, I watch the best golfers in the world scout out a course Monday through Wednesday and practice rounds and what goes into all the prep for an event. I'm curious, what do the very best mini golfers do, and how do they prepare, and what does their preparation look like for events like on an international stage?
Yeah, and it's very similar, and I guess it depends on the type of event too. So, like the World Championships, I said, is like the Olympics of mini golf. So there, it's a very team-based competition. So Germany will roll in as a team with coaches, with physical therapists, with all sorts of mental therapists and stuff
I
like
love
that. And
it.
they
Wow.
approach, when you watch, they'll be there 5, 6, 7, 8 days before the tournament. These tournaments 4 or 5 days long, and as a team, they go through the course, they figure out the right ball to use. Tom didn't mention this, but internationally, they just don't use golf balls. There are specialized miniature golf balls for those different types of courses. And you can use a different ball for every lane. And what they're doing, Tom's trying to, show a picture
Thank
here.
you. Yeah, YouTube
But
audience will see that for sure.
yeah, what they're doing is, it's preparation, right? They're going through and saying, well, this type of ball plays on this lane very well. It plays in this temperature well. There's a different bounce to it. So there's a preparation from a team aspect that is very specific to those type of tournaments. And then when you kind of step that back to maybe more of the tournaments we're used to playing here in the US, or some of the ones that Tom played that are more individualistic, it is the same. You're going out there, you're trying to figure out, what is the ball going to do? I think one of the interesting things about mini golf, right? Like when you compare it to golf, like we're all good putters, but if you play a round of golf or if you play 4 rounds and you play a par three, you're never going to have the same putt on that par three in all 4 rounds. Whereas we start from the same place every single time, right? So there's a different bit of mental preparation as we go through and saying, all right, starting from this place or an inch to the left, an inch to the right, what does that do to the ball? Scoping it out. If you don't get the hole in ones like Tom talks about, we're out there. We've got our book of breaks and charts and everything the way you would on a regular golf course, and then
Nice.
it's all about repetition and mental preparedness. You're going out there and you're trying to figure out probably the same way a pro golfer would in terms of how am I attacking this course, what holes are my strengths, what holes are the strengths of my competitors, where do I play it safe, where do I be aggressive, how does that change as the tournament go along, and you really do go into these tournaments with a game plan and how you're going to approach it and everything. And I think it's great on the team side. We've got coaches when you're playing in that, so the kind of that caddy aspect, if you've got somebody that you can play off and ask and get some advice and everything. So the two sports are not that much different in terms of the mental, and probably the physical preparation's a little bit different. But if you've ever stood on a mini golf course for 8 hours during the day, you will understand that your knees and back need some work, uh, definitely, to
Yeah.
play at that high level for 4 or 5 days in a row too. And like Tom said, you're looking at these scores. I was pulling up the world champion score. The gentleman who won the individual tournament over 10 rounds averaged a 23 and had a perfect 18. And that was the first live perfect 18 I got to witness, which was pretty cool.
Very cool.
And then he made the next 7 shots on the concrete course, totally different course to start that next round. I was like, so he made his first 25 shots.
Yep.
It's at that level, when you see those scores, it seems so intimidating. And to level set for folks from the US, it's just a different type of mini golf that they're playing, that they're trying to replicate the environment on these standard courses so that it's not all about learning crazy specific knowledge about how that type of turf, that type of course is. You're learning more like tiny idiosyncrasies. Okay, they set this in on a hill, so it's going to break a little bit more than my home course. But on a concrete course, for example, the way that it's standardized, the lanes, all 18, are identical, minus one where there's some variation on any kind of course. So if you live in the Czech Republic and you want to go travel to Sweden to play in a tournament, you don't have to get there 2 weeks early just to figure out some of the little things of the course and the
Right.
temperature. You are really getting there and figuring out the little details of how that course is different than yours. And for people that know putt putt in the US, that's about as close as it gets. That the putt putt style courses that used to be more common in the US, starting in the 1950s and through the 90s, they're kind of fallen away, unfortunately, of late. Those courses, if you went from one to another, the general feel of it would be pretty similar, and a lot of the layouts of the holes would be similar. These, it's like almost identical, and it's very regulated, and it's very much more of a sport and part of a sports system, as I kind of talked about earlier, than it is in the US, UK, and Oceania, where it is much more a commercial endeavor for leisure that happens to sometimes host it as a sport.
Well put. Very cool. And this is Tom and Pat again with the Puttcast here. Be sure to check out their content as well. Regularly talking all things mini golf. As you can see, they dive into the weeds. They're out there in the tournaments, trying and reviewing all the courses around the world. So if you want to hear mini golf centric conversation, it's the Puttcast for sure. And congrats on a 100 episode milestone as well too. Just your thoughts and feedback on keeping the content train going in the name of mini golf and surpassing 100 episodes.
Can't believe we
I think,
made it.
yeah, I think we were both, we started the podcast coming out of like watching Holy Moly and reviewing those episodes. And, I
Yeah.
remember the kind of the first year we were sitting there going, all right, how much are we going to actually have, especially when the show goes off? And I think we've been blessed to just, as we've peeled back different layers of this, we've had so many good guests. I think we've had like 30 guests on now, and in all sorts of ways that have connected to mini golf. And folks that were on Holy Moly, but folks who are course owners, who are running tournaments, who are part of the international space. I mean, we had a band that had a mini golf based song on augmented reality, virtual reality, and we've just been really happy to find all of these different corners. In addition to each year, I mean, there's a huge slate of the international side, and certainly what we've been doing with the American Mini Golf Alliance. We've grown up to 30 tournaments now, so if nothing else, we've got plenty of our own content to just to bore people with if we talk about all year long. But we just keep finding new ways that mini golf is interacting with people's lives, and so getting to 100 is definitely a huge milestone. But I think getting to 200 is probably not going to be that hard.
No, well said.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And Tom, from your perspective as well too, because I know that you're doing some insane travel and creating content on the fly for the podcast as well. What's that been like recently?
Difficult. That's why I've been finishing the year up with this mini or gratitude in mini golf, or I don't even see, I can't even remember the name of it because it feels like I've been doing it for a while. And I'm doing 18 days kind of uh, expressing my gratitude for the different things in mini golf. A lot of it was just, I didn't post much from when I was in Sweden and really wanted to go back and just thank all of the people who were involved in that experience and helping me learn about the game. Everything from seeing how to put the rubber face on my putter in the way that they would do it in Sweden with like just efficiency and expertise is like, oh, and then just playing with people that were 17 and 70 who are some of the most accomplished players in the world, and equally learning how much I have to learn and learn how much differently people can play from person to person within a country, and know that that's part of the game and that there's a lot of different ways that you can approach it and it works. That's helped my own game, and I've brought that to the podcast. So when we first started this, were recapping Holy Moly during the pandemic on YouTube. And then we were like, let's do an audio only. And for some reason, we picked to do recaps of an Australian version of Holy Moly that no one in the States could probably watch, that had a release schedule that was way faster than we expected, with also the learning curve of how to edit a podcast.
Well, you're really finding a
And
small niche audience right there. You're
Yeah,
really
we were
trimming trees.
really
good luck to us trying to find ways to watch it too. Was the other thing.
yeah. And it was the pandemic, and it was like, what else are you gonna do? And it was dead of winter, like it is right now as we're recording this, and we're both in colder climates. So sort of how you survive these places is you get creative with your time. And as that happened, I think I had not had a predilection for the competitive game of mini golf, but I played basketball. And I think via understanding the game better from Pat, both from our conversations and what ended up being our conversations on the podcast, I've I've people have listened, they can kind of see my evolution and understanding of the game, where I still make mistakes about things that we're talking about, but we've got Pat, who's got a ton of experience, involved at the international level for a while, and myself, who's just kind of figuring things out. I think it makes for a good counterbalance. I think we both just also enjoy talking about the game so much, and don't know anybody else that could really keep up with doing this much content. And we're both like, yeah, that makes sense. We'll talk about mini golf. Like Pat's played, I mean, between the two of us, we've played somewhere over 1,000 different mini golf courses. We've competed, Lord knows how many tournaments. I mean, I wrote down I keep track of how many courses and rounds I play in a year, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really encapsulate the ridiculous amount of mini golf that we play compared to the average person. Because when you go out and practice for a tournament, you might practice during a week for a tournament like the Masters more than an entire family will play mini golf in their entire lifetime.
Probably.
Like,
I
Yeah,
mean,
I imagine.
I can guarantee you that the two of us take more putts than anybody on the PGA Tour does during a year. easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And that's even them practicing and hitting putts and practice rounds, but they're only doing it, a couple times. So yeah, the numbers are crazy on your putting. I have a entire cabinet full of scorecards for every round of golf I play, and it's just
Same.
stuffed to the brim. Just absolutely stuffed to the brim. Every once in a while, I'll just reach out and pluck one out and just remember a past day on the course. But that's our bond and commonality is that I'm in the golf content space. Mostly in a capacity where I'm seeing things happen on a golf course, but with the way mini golf has grown to accompany and be part of golf concept is why we constantly come into contact, because it's something I see all the time places I go. And I want to just reflect on a few of those highlights in 2025 and get your perspective. One of the cool things I saw at the beginning of 2025 was actually a trip to Horseshoe Bay Resort nearby here, just outside of Austin, Texas. And the really cool thing that they did, which is very unique, is they have a real grass putting course.
Mm.
This is definitely, I don't really put this quite under the world of mini golf. It's definitively a putting course. But that was an early highlight for me. Have you guys ever had the opportunity to play anything like that, where it's a real grass putting course? And what are your experiences with that?
Have you,
Tom
Pat?
has. I've not played a real grass putting like full
Oh,
18 course. Nope.
we have a couple in Minnesota. We have one in particular, Centennial Lakes in Edina, that I've played. And then we also have one out in Blaine that's part of a golf course that's set up. I feel like I've played a third one. The funny thing is, I think only of late have I seen the value, and this is going to offend maybe some of your audience, of playing on real grass. I think previously always been like, focused exclusive on mini golf, and grass gets too close to golf. No
Yep.
offense to golfers, it's just my thing.
Oh, it's a
And
completely different surface too, in reality.
and it
It's
it's just weird. The course in Edina, though, Centennial Lakes, is like 175-foot putting holes with actual sand traps, and the way you actually have to hit it with a putter doesn't make sense in any sport, because in mini golf you never are hitting a ball that hard and that far. And yeah, it's unique and it's fun, and I think what I've grown an appreciation of for mini golf, and I think we've embraced, not only as the podcast, but the American Mini Golf Alliance, the competitive organization in the US that we both helped find, is that we put them all under the mini golf banner, and we don't have that distinction in mini golf that a lot of other sports have. And I think, talking about the international game, that's mini golf. And also so is that grass course. And also is the course where you hit in the dinosaur's mouth. And what's nice about that is we're not like fighting within this kind of small whatever. There's people passionate that believe
yep.
one is better than the other. And they will let you know that. Believe me, everywhere around the world people have opinions, but it's not like paddle and pickleball and table tennis and tennis, where people are literally fighting over it. Tennis players are mad that pickleball is taking over their
Oh yeah,
courses,
definitely.
and they're trying to battle it out. And there are people in mini golf, if you want to go way in the weeds, which we've seen. And the good thing is you can use Facebook to read conversations of people overseas fighting about it. And it's no different than any other sport. But I think for us with the AMA, and I think Pat and I philosophically with the podcast too, is like, this is a big tent. And this is a game that anybody can get into, that doesn't take much equipment, doesn't take much effort, and that many people have easier access to a mini golf course than anything else. And heck, here's the dirty secret to those of you that don't have a mini golf course in your backyard. You might have a golf course that just has a free putting green that you can get creative with. You could set something up and hit a ball around and just get practice that way. And it's nice, and it's a nice service. There's a golf course right down the, like, less than a mile from my house, and I popped over there more often than not. And it's a great way to practice. And all I need is my putter and a ball, and Doesn't cost me anything. I don't know if the club cares, and maybe I shouldn't overly admit that, but
No,
it's
yeah.
usually a service to the community is just having this. There's a lot of people that are like, "You can have that for free. You have to pay for the real thing." And we're like, "Oh, this is the real thing for us."
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very underrated thing for people who are just getting into golf in
Yeah.
general is 99.9% of courses, you can just go hit putts and chips and no one will bother you at all. And you can work on your short game infinitely. Ironically, I always joke that everyone's at the driving range trying to smack the driver a million yards when they really
Mhm.
should all be putting and chipping because that's where the whole game gets won anyway. But yeah, you live and you learn.
That's what I do whenever I play. I play golf a couple times a year. It's usually in a scramble, and everybody goes to the driving range, and I immediately just go to the putting green because first of all, that's where my skill is going to be anyways. But like
Yep.
that's where I'm comfortable. That's right. That's where we're going to win the game. And having to adjust between the artificial surfaces and the real grass is a big thing when you take so many putts on artificial surfaces during the year and just kind of changing your mindset there. But I do need to get to a full grass course at some point.
I
You're right about
realized the
the putt. You're right about the putting and scrambles though, Pat. Is if you just make one or two of those putts for birdie for the team, you're a hero for the day. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
what you do
that's
the rest
it.
of the day. So
I realized, I have played Pinehurst, and probably not a lot of golfers have, but I've played the Thistledew putting course, which is a grass putting course. I knew there was another one in there, and
yeah,
that's one of those things where if you go there, it's a really challenging, well laid out, attractive, like, got cool little stands to put your drinks, so if you can't get a tea time on the big course at Pinehurst, there wasn't that many of us out there putting, and I'm pretty sure it was significantly cheaper. So I could say I played Pinehurst, just maybe not the actual big course.
no, I love that. And I love that social element too. And that's something we're seeing a lot that accompanies mini golf now. Obviously, with the proliferation of pop stroke, I've had the opportunity to visit several different locations and seeing how they all differ and how each one is kind of its own unique destination. But just talk about the socialization aspect of mini golf, which I think a lot of our audience is really starting to see. They're saying, oh, I didn't play much traditional mini golf when I was a kid, but now in my young adult life, I'm coming into venues like this, and I find myself putting a lot more than I did when I was a kid.
Yeah, and I mean, I could start with some of that, and we started seeing this probably pre-pandemic because there was a few places in the UK, swingers, putt shack, that started with that kind of bartainment view of it, where they said, okay, this is going to be a very social thing. We're going to layer on the bar aspect, food truck, and when you take a look at really the cost to go do that as a friend group compared to a lot of other things that you can go do with a group of people, it's been very reasonable, to get out there, and they've just, jumped on it. You see it with everything else, right? Darts, axe throwing, and everything. I think mini golf
Yeah,
was one of the first there, and then, pop stroke kind of taking that to the next level, bringing that outside, the bigger that he had the driving ranges and stuff that go along with it. And so, we have just seen in all of our travels that that has grown exponentially in so many different forms. And the nice stuff about like a puttery or a putt shack, those are indoors. And so you get places like where Tom and I are from. I know in Boston, they've got two putt shacks now, and they just announced that they were opening a swingers, coming
nice.
this year. So that area is still growing pretty rapidly across the country, and they're not at a point where they've saturated it, and it just seems like people embrace it. We were talking a little bit before we got on here. Yeah, I work for KPMG, who sponsors one of the women's events, but I have found, as we go out, people are always like, hey, what are we going to do? And they all look at me, and I'm like, well, I'll go find a mini golf place that's got the bar, and we'll go all there if we go to travel. And so it's been a very easy thing for people. We always talk about it, right? And Tom alluded to it. You can play any ages, any skill set. And especially when you throw a couple drinks in there, some of us who are a little bit more competitive, it probably takes the edge off a little bit and makes it a little bit easier for our friends to beat us at the end of the day.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that have all come together for this renaissance of mini golf. I think some of it is everybody with their mobile device has access to all of the music, all of the movies, all the video games. Everything is sort of at your fingertips. and you're looking through the screen, and the idea of going to an immersive mini golf course, interactive mini golf course, not only digitally, but with other people in person. And there's elements where parts of the game you're in putt shack, like answering a trivia question. That is something you can't replicate at home, that social experience. And that's what I think a lot of people want. Like, if I pay $20 to go sit down and watch a movie that 2 months later I could watch on a screen at my house for nothing on the streaming service I'm paying for, that feels like a lot compared to they're giving me the gear to play this game that might be set up on a surface and environment that feels kind of an escape, get to be next to dinosaurs or really lush plants, or those
Yeah,
pop strokes are just really well maintained, nice kind of escape areas.
yeah, they're
And that's
photogenic. They're
real
beautiful.
they're photogenic, but then on top of it, I think it's also interacting with the other trend of retail environments are really struggling because people can also buy all that stuff on their computer and their phone and their screens. So, how do you get people anywhere near these spaces that aren't being used? And what you're seeing, even with that pop stroke, is they're doing a covered outdoor course now in Nashville, their first one, because they're taking advantage of these spaces, and they're in interesting spaces. Like, I played the Winter Gardens and the Waterford courses in Orlando, and I'm always reminded they're in new housing developments,
Yeah,
shopping mall parking lots that are, as you approach them, it feels odd, but if you look at it, it adds some personality to those places and makes them more desirable to go to. And I think mini golf gets back to that original 1950s roadside attraction. You see the big muffler man off the side of the road and you pull over to get gas. You see the big dinosaur and you're like, oh, the family should stop to pull over, and you end up spending money on taffy or rock candy. I think weirdly it's coming full circle again for mini golf, where it's in itself a novelty and an attraction and has a lot more staying power. And I think in this country, the nice thing is, and we see this, that even though we're like the crazy people that play everything and anything and playing way more mini golf than anybody else, we bump into a lot of people that are like, yeah, every time we go on vacation, we seek out unique mini golf courses because that's the fun thing to do in every city. And it matches up kind of with the trend of people when they go to a new city. I want to eat at a unique restaurant. I saw it on Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives, or I saw that they got a Michelin star.
right.
That personality of a city and having that uniqueness works. And that's where Popstroke, it's great. Their courses, if you are someone who's really in the weeds about putting, they are very different. They're not the same layout,
Yeah.
and gives people that experience, that same experience as food, where it's about an experience that they couldn't have anywhere else but there.
Now you're so right about that. And when I interviewed Greg Bartoli, the CEO, he mentioned that it was a vacation to Myrtle Beach, and he enjoyed playing at a specific mini golf spot that like was the first light bulb for him. Fast forward, he's using his professional earnings to buy up commercial real estate in Florida for the locations that became the original spots for PopStroke. So it was all part of that genesis. And Pat, you mentioned it as well too, that the barrier for putting is so low compared to every other aspect in golf, and that's something that Greg definitely harped on as well too. One other very social thing that I have to bring up from my 2025 calendar that I definitely tag you guys in is an event that I want to try and get you both to in future years. If you make a trip to Austin, Texas, it's going to have to be around the weekend of the East Side Mini Open. This is the event in East Austin where a bunch of local bars and businesses all collaborate together and work with different sponsor organizations and charities, and they design different mini golf holes in each of the bars. It's the best bar crawl day of the year, bar none, in Austin. So I'm going to have to work on the campaign to get you guys here for that in 2026.
You don't have to work that hard to get us to come to Unique Mini Golf.
Yeah.
We are, it's an easy sell. I think the hardest thing for us, frankly, of late is for both of us, our mini golf endeavors, getting to our reviews of courses played has been challenging because the American Mini Golf Alliance, which we started and talked about in the first podcast we were with you, was like 9 tournaments in a couple of states and had, handful of people playing them and was growing, is now, I think we're going to be up to 15 or 16 states next year. We
Wow.
had over 500 people compete last year. We had tournaments that on their low end were in the 20s and on the high end were in the 60s and 80s, and have like a national ranking where people are traveling to compete from all over the country in one location in Atlanta at the end of the season to get, to see if they could get enough points to take over first place. So it's been more than enough to occupy our time. It's now trying to figure out, I think a lot of us that play competitively, it's like, what are we doing in 2026? And how can we balance it? Like, what are the tournaments I'm going to drive to in the Midwest, and which are the ones that I'm going to consider flying to? And it's like, oh, am I going to fly out for Pat's tournament in Matterhorn? Yeah. But how am I going to fit in getting to Boothbay, Maine at some point and playing Dolphin? And
What a
it's like,
destination
what
that
you do in
is.
the winter?
Yeah, it's certainly not for a lack of stuff to do. I mean, it's just there's so much, and then we got to try to like live our real lives and have real jobs on top
Yeah,
of
that
all of this
too.
too, which is quite the bummer.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we'd be getting to even more mini golf places.
definitely. Well,
Well,
if anything on the schedule makes its way for Texas, I'll be there. So I'll see you guys there.
yeah, and I'll have to keep in touch with you that for a couple of putts, we are working with a client in Texas that will be opening a new indoor course that I will tell you about offline and where it is. But
Exciting.
we'll be happy to get the word out. But we designed that course, and it's going to be a lot of fun and have some pretty challenging holes too. So stay tuned for that.
Good tease indeed. Let's wrap with some highlights here as we wrap up 2025. And let's start with Pat first and just talk about maybe a favorite course or favorite tournament moment for you in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I could quickly do one of each, and so I want to shout out Dusty Planet, which is a new course in Rhode Island. It's an indoor course, 9 holes. It's got a kind of a
Nice.
spacey theme.
Where in Rhode Island is that?
Really, it's right in Providence. Yeah,
Oh, very
so
cool. All right, cool.
yeah,
That's about
nine
an hour from
holes.
where my family grew up in Massachusetts.
Yeah, looking to expand. The
Mm.
owners have been very much involved, throwing themselves in with the AMA. We've had a couple players come out of Rhode Island that are new to the AMA this year. I got a chance to play it in the summer, and it was just really cool. I'm looking forward to hopefully going back to it around the holidays, coming up and afterwards into maybe into January a little bit. And then I think my favorite moment. All right, maybe it's two moments because I did have an opportunity to be on ESPN The Ocho this year, and so probably my highlight of the year was coming in third in the MPT event that was there. And I finished my rounds with acing, I think it was the four of the last aceable holes that I could do. But certainly my highlight was getting to see a perfect
Oh yeah,
18 in
a highlight
person.
reel on ESPN The Ocho. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you
that's
can't
sports
ask for
goals
more
right
than
there for
that, but
everyone. Yeah.
yeah, like I said, I think the only thing that beats that is actually being able to see for the first time in person somebody hit an 18 at the World Championships, and just like the skill and quality of putting, and just and for somebody like Tom said, that these scores are very low for these players almost all the time in these high level tournaments. But there is a level of joy that is above and beyond for the best players when they reach that achievement. It was really cool to see.
And before Tom goes, the 18 as it's happening, is this like a no hitter in baseball or like a 300 in bowling? Does no one talk to them and stay away, or is it still just kind of very social and fun? How's that work? As they're going for the 18, you see it could potentially happen.
Fun.
Yeah, well, and I guess it depends on where they're doing it. So, like in the World Championships, it's a less social kind of atmosphere because it is so serious. And this one happened in the first round, so like this Tobias hit this 18 before some people had even started their tournament. So
Wow.
it was just kind of a weird vibe, but you could definitely tell basically around hole 16 stuff starts to shift. I'm doing media, so like I'm starting to come over to those holes and try to capture that. The other folks who were there doing media and the players, and there's only kind of so much you can do, but I think every player is going to be a little bit different in terms of what's going through their head, but it definitely has that atmospheric vibe of like a no hitter or a 300 game.
Very cool.
And those international tournaments, it's a wild vibe because when people make shots, if they're gets a harder lane, there will be it is not quiet. There are no golf claps. There will be people yelling very loudly, and there are call and responses amongst teams even where you will hear people cheering across the course and yelling, "Yeah!" And
Mm.
it's not quiet. Not quiet at all.
That reminds me of when I was at the Ryder Cup, Team Europe. Their chants just absolutely dominated Team USA. They were coordinated. All the Europe fans and players knew them. It was on beat. It was on rhythm. It's like, man, it was pretty cool to see. Not gonna
It's that
lie. What was your
soccer
highlight of?
slash football culture.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah.
What was your highlight of 2025?
I got a bunch. Pat played a little less than me. I wrote down because I'm still working on the end of year. I think I played over 40 new courses. Somewhere around in the realm of playing 600 or so courses. About 100 reviews behind on the website. So that is the big number. But I think there were two major events competing. One of them was the Illinois Open. It was the first year we held it, and I won it with a hole in one on the sixth hole of sudden death.
Wow.
There's got a video of it, and you can just see me jump up in the air when I made it. I was pretty excited about that. And then in Sweden, in a tournament that I didn't do well, or as well as I'd hoped, in practice, I shot my best practice round. I had scored it. I was just like, well, I got to kind of get ready. This is expectations of aces, and been practicing a day or two, so start scoring some rounds, and I scored a 20. So
Wow.
that was the lowest round I've ever scored in mini golf, and that was fun. Unfortunately, I averaged a 27 in that tournament, which was rough. And 7 people shot 19s. It, and it's a lot harder than it looks, but I would say that. And then of the courses that I played, there's way too many to kind of allude to, but playing the World Adventure Golf Tour final in Portugal and Villa Moura, those courses were cool. Everything that I played in Sweden, Uvik, Linköping, Sundsvall, Felton, Adventure. Um, One of the more unique courses, though, that if you're in the Chicagoland area, it's the Woodfield Mall in the northern suburbs. A friend of ours, Steve Christoph, who was on Holy Moly as well, opened up a 9-hole mini golf course in his escape room franchise that each of the holes on the scorecard, with each hole there's kind of like a mystery to solve and a word puzzle to put together. That's
Oh.
the first time I'd seen something like that, and really liked that as sort of what space mini golf can really occupy, that there's so many different things that you can do, and you can connect it with science and art and a bar crawl and also an escape room. And so I think that's the thing that makes me so excited about mini golf is the variety, if I haven't talked about that enough. And yeah, and for the people that like the pop stroke style courses, I think for those folks, even if you don't have a pop stroke open up in your area, that seems to be the biggest trend in style of courses, or one of the two. For outdoor courses, I will say I played probably 4 or 5 of the courses that I played new this year were very influenced, if not directly borrowing from pop stroke, in probably all the best ways for the people that like that style. So um, that's out there as a trend, and I think that's good for the American Mini Golf Alliance because those courses tend to be really good and consistent playing for the competitive game. So we'll see what that does for the competitive game in 2026.
Well said indeed. Well, we always like to end with a little food conversation with our guests. So I'll lead the way with Pat and just ask for the 19th hole order for a competitive mini golfer after the tournament's order over. What's like the meal and drink of choice for you after a tournament in the 19th hole?
So for this year, for spending so much time in Germany, it is currywurst with fries and a beer.
Nice. So I'm planning tentatively a Europe trip next year to the
Ooh.
Amsterdam area / Germany, and I have read up on currywurst being a big thing over there.
I ate way too much of it during my World Championship trip.
Nice, very cool. All right, and Tom, I got to ask about your journey as well too. Specifically, Sweden. I'm a little curious about. Give me maybe a fun night out or food adventure in Sweden or something you can recap for us.
You pretty much read my mind. The first night on my Sweden trip, I went back to what I think is probably the best indoor mini golf course in the world for people that are either they like to drink, they like a good vibe, they like really good food. Swing in Stockholm. It's Hans Olafsson, who we had on as a guest. He opened up a chain of mini golf bars, and it's the whole like velvet stairway down on the sides of the wall has the history of the game of mini golf from the 1920s. He has archival stuff from the beginning of the game, all of these cool drawings up there. And the food is the best food I've had at a mini golf course to date. Like you can just get like the set meal, and I'm vegetarian and just get that. And I got this beautiful, like well-made cauliflower thing and all of this amazing food. And then for the drink, I always want to go local. And of course, I want to like get something unique. And I tried an authentic Swedish schnapps, which for those of you in the Chicagoland area, I would say it's closer to Malort than
Oh
it
wow,
is, the schnapps that you might have had as a teenager. It was pretty aggressive. They served it on ice, and I, ditched the ice and shot it down because it's a little bit more medicine-y, but, given another chance to, have that exact same experience at Swing in Stockholm, I would do it, and yeah, there's a the I love black licorice, and all of the mini golf courses there, like, tend to have ice cream. So any black licorice, especially salty black licorice desserts and ice cream treats, that's what I'm getting.
love that. That's a great 19th hole experience indeed. Tom and Pat, thanks again for hopping on the final course of life of 2025. Excited to follow everything with the AMA and the Puttcast as well too. And I think we're going to have a chance to link up possibly in 2026. I'm hoping to be in your neck of the woods in Minnesota, Tom,
Love
for
it.
the KPMG Women's PGA. So maybe we can organize some mini golf content around that week, possibly.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome.
Well,
Thank you
thank
again,
you for
guys,
having
for
us
joining,
on.
and Happy New Year
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, happy New Year.